Founded in 2008, Melbourne's mighty melodic death metal legends Orpheus Omega have gone from strength to strength. As you'll hear in the following interview, they have no intentions of settling into any comfort zones or slowing down, evidence with the impending release of their new EP, Portraits. You're listening to the Heavy Mag podcast, and I'm Ez. Settle in and enjoy this wonderful conversation I had with Orpheus Omega frontman Chris Themelco. Good morning, Chris.
Morning. How are you doing?
I'm good. I almost did not recognize you without your Pikachu onesie on from Knotfest.
It is dirty and muddy, and therefore it is in the wash, and I need a backup one so I can wear it during the week. It's actually not mine, it's Leon's, so I really do need to wash it for him.
How did you pull up after the festival?
Quite tired, actually, because I am old, and apparently my body is not able to stand up for that long anymore. So
yeah, knees and ankles for me. It was like,
because my knees are definitely like actually slightly screwed. I was like, remember, don't lock your knees when you're standing, slight bend, blah, blah, blah. And like, my quads were screwed by the end of the day. So I was just like, okay, this is what we're in for. But the festival was freaking amazing. So it was like definitely worth it. It was, it was a long day, but in the best way possible. It was kind of nice that it was just 2 stages though, in like the typical Knotfest style, because I just at least got to stand in one spot for most of the day. I didn't have to travel too far.
Yeah, and pretty much wherever you situated yourself, there was good views and good sound, which was really I really loved that as well. I went to I reckon a Good Things Festival had the same setup a few years back, and then they've gone away from that setup.
Right.
But I think it's an awesome setup, and I think it was a really, really well executed festival. So I just want to clarify for anyone listening that Chris was there as a punter and not performing. But we do want to see Orpheus Omega on a Knotfest lineup in the future, I reckon. We'll petition for 2024.
I'm going to start sending how to vote cards out just in people's letterboxes. Like, vote one Orpheus on Knotfest.
Were you guys meant to be on a download, and was it the year that was cancelled?
Yeah. I was best man at one of my mates' weddings at the time when we found out. So I was like, driving to Phillip Island at like 7 a.m, and I got a call from one of the lovely people at Live Nation who were just like super like, that was so nice about it too, and we're just like, we're so sorry this has happened, blah blah blah. And I'm like, it's there's nothing you guys can do about it, like that sucks. But it was like everyone who was involved was just so, like, you could tell how excited everyone was about the shows happening, especially because like I think at this point it was that My Chem were headlining as their comeback show, right? And
yeah, it was a huge lineup.
Freaking massive, In Flames as well, who obviously on Knotfest, and a bunch of other bands that we are massive fans of, and like I'm a huge Clutch fan.
Me too.
Oh, dude, part of the like sad part for me where everyone was like, oh no, you guys don't get to play download, and I'm like, I don't get to meet Clutch.
Yeah.
So we're meant to do that, and I feel like we definitely would like to vie for a position on one of the festivals, hopefully in the next year or so. We definitely have tailored our sound and stage presence to the interactions we've had with our crowds, especially on bigger shows. Like I feel like we're definitely in a position where we can excel on that kind of stage, and it's just like working back towards being able to get onto them.
Yeah, like starting from scratch again. Well, not so much starting from scratch. You guys have done plenty, I think, with that Download Festival too, because it was in the early stages of the pandemic. It was much more of a kick in the guts, because the more cancellations we saw, the more we expected them, I suppose. So, but that one was early on, and that one sucked big time. So
yeah, exactly. It kind of was like, it's just going to be this one and it'll be fine. And then, like you said, as they kind of kept coming, it was like, all right, guess that's happening.
We're not doing anything for the next 15 years. It's fine. No, it's good to have it's good to have festivals and shit back. It's really good. Yeah. You guys did the live stream gig not too long ago too, and that looked like that was quite a success.
That was really cool. Like, it was definitely a nightmare to put together for a whole bunch of reasons I won't get into, but when it finally actually happened, it was like, oh, this is great. This was a really cool idea, and it actually forced us to sort of up our game a little bit in terms of like, well, can we do live streams at other places and whatnot? So we've upgraded our live rack and system so that technically if we want to do a live stream again, we can do it directly out of our rack straight into like an interface in our camera setup, and have like a direct desk mix and stuff like that. So things like that we're like, well, if we were to do a festival, we could literally do stuff like that on the fly and not have it take any extra time. So
Hell yeah.
yeah, it was a really good experience. It was a cool lineup, and it was just a fun night. Played some old classic songs that not heaps of people in the crowd knew, because it's nice that we've grown our crowd as time's gone on, but it was like, a few people in there who were just like excited to hear some of the songs off like the first or second album and stuff. So it was good fun.
Yeah, awesome. Well, let's talk about your new EP, Portraits. Normally one of my staple questions is what makes this release different from your previous records. But you guys promoted a lot that this EP has each one of your members of the band contributing a song each. So that alone to me already sets it apart. But yeah, let's talk about how you got to that approach and how you decided on how you were going to execute it.
So Kez and I had the idea to do this style of EP a whole bunch of years ago, probably before Where Your Sins came out. But with everything going on, we just didn't really have the time to write or do anything with that idea. So we just sort of kept it on the back burner. After we finished the Bleed the Way 10-year anniversary tour, after the 5 postponements and all that, post-lockdown, once Joao had officially left the band and Lucan joined, we were just like, well, instead of doing an album, maybe now's the time where we can do that EP idea. And it was just, as soon as we put it forward to the band, everyone was like, yes, let's do this. And, some of the things that we did with this that are different is the artwork and the release are specifically either just digital through Spotify. Hello, cat. We'll just ignore you. For anyone who can't see, my cat's just obviously walking across the screen, but that's fine. We're doing it as a limited vinyl release through Anti-Vinyl Vinyl Club, and that's specifically because the artwork and everything is really put together to be as a package. It'll be on Spotify and stuff, which is great, but I feel like the whole idea was sort of centered around doing it as a vinyl, and that's why it's kind of exciting as well. Like all the decisions we made went into making it as this specific style of package. And yeah, everyone wrote their own song with their own sort of take and sort of, where everyone's at this point in time as a person. One of the big things was Kez's song was effectively Kez's coming out song. Kez is trans, so they had their opportunity to be able to tell that story through their song, which we thought was really cool. And it's, the style of song is very different to anything we do as a band, but it fits so perfectly within what this EP is meant to be doing. So everyone had an opportunity to just let loose and think of it as like a solo project with other band members happy to help out. It was a really cool way of doing things. It was different for us, but it was super easy at the same time. So I think it really helped gel the new members together as well. Like the lineup feels really comfortable because of that.
You've got a bunch of guest musicians that have featured on it as well. Did the selection of those guests come down to the people who had written the specific song?
Yeah, I think we sort of had like candy shop suggestions for people we wanted on it. Like it was very much like if we could have anyone we wanted. And it was cool because some of the people we chose were people we already knew, which was kind of nice. And then some people that we only knew sort of peripherally, and we got to talk to them as well, and they were really keen. So like I had Andy Gillian on my song, and that was really cool because he wasn't just contributing a guitar solo or guitars, which is what he's most well known for, but he also did a lot of the orchestrations and did some growl vocals and singing as well on the song, which is really cool. Leon's song has Jim from Caligula's Horse, who are an incredible Australian band, and Jim's just an incredible vocalist, and he was stoked to be on it. Once we showed him the song, he was really keen. He was made the time to be part of the video clip as well, which was sick. Matt has Marcus and Yuka from Omnium Gatherum, obviously friends of ours and a band that we've toured with before. And Luke has Bjorn from Soilwork on, who's, at least for me as well, at least Luke and I is easily one of my favorite vocalists just ever. And everyone was just so involved. Like we sort of gave them free rein and we're just like, hey, we want you here in these spots, but feel free to, experiment. Like there's no real locked in thing for this. There's just a general framework and we want you to sort of let loose. And everyone went so far above and beyond for their contribution to these songs. It was really just like see how you feel. And they just added so much to the songs. Like even using Bjorn as an example in the song that's not released yet, Luke's song, we had really specific ideas of where we definitely wanted him. But by the time he gave it back to us, it's like he's basically on the track more than I am. And it was just so cool because he took all these parts that I didn't expect him to do and turned them into just something so much more special, like to just our ears. So part of the excitement was not just us writing the songs, but it was seeing these people who we really look up to and admire and care about, and are creative influences on us as well, just doing their thing on our music. It was a really cool experience, and everyone was just super lovely.
I've always been intrigued with the process behind collaborations and how it comes together, specifically when it comes to lyrics, because often that's a really personal craft. So, I mean, with lyrics, do you have them written and you tell the guest these are the words, sing them how you feel them, or do you let them contribute lyrics themselves? Like, how do you execute that?
I think it depends on the part. Like, there was definitely a few bits, I think with Edge of Forever, Leon's song, that we were like, hey, if the lyrics or the overall melody ideas don't feel comfortable, just change them. And I think Jim changed a few little bits here and there, and for the better. Like, that was sick. And we were just open to being like, if you think there's a better way to say or do this, if you were the one writing it, please do. And there was little bits that were changed, but for the most part, it was like everyone kept, the vocalists specifically kept the lyrics mostly the same, but the melodies and the way they did the phrasing, that was what was really cool. Like, they definitely made it their own, and that was exciting for us. So, we didn't want it to be like a guest spot where they're just, becoming an extra element of the music. We really wanted it to be like, how would you do it if it was your song? And you can definitely hear that each person isn't trying to fit into like an Orpheus mold. They're definitely treating our song as if they were like writing it. And I think that's why it's as fun and as unique for us as it is, because it came back with all the bits that we hoped and then way more. So I think sometimes people can be really specific with it. Like, I know when we had Nilo from Insomnium on our last album on Lighthouse, there was already a very specific vocal pattern that needed to be followed to like lock in with the music. So he did that, but he did it, with his style of phrasing and whatnot, and it was awesome. But that was a little bit different to this, where we were just like, have at it, just like, and maybe if that's really good but it doesn't work, we can muck around with the instruments, like we can probably change stuff on our end to make it work. So it was a lot more collaborative, as opposed to like, it feels like it's less of a guest spot and a full, they're fully featured members at this point for those songs.
Yeah, that's super cool. With your usual writing style, like, are you normally the one that pens the lyrics?
Yeah, I usually do. Joao wrote a lot with me as well when he was in the band. You could tell our different style of writing, which is really cool as well. But I think moving forward with the current lineup, I'm definitely keen for people to put their ideas forward for lyrics, because I enjoy writing them. But I always feel like I write a lot better when someone gives me like a framework. I like delving into, like, if someone says, I wrote these riffs or whatnot, and here's what the emotional idea is behind it, here's what I'm trying to say, then I almost feel like I have to delve into like, how far can I take that idea within the confines of what you want it to say? I find that more exciting than writing my own lyrics, because I always end up in that rabbit hole of like, I could do anything. And I feel much less focused as a person when that happens. If I can throw the kitchen sink at it, then I feel like it's a lot harder for me. But if someone gives me an idea,
Yeah, you get choice paralysis.
exactly. So if someone gives me an idea for something, then I just go down the rabbit hole of just that idea and try to like, make it as much of a mountain as I can from that small little push.
Yeah, I get that. It's a bit like a creative writing assignment.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%.
Do you think that this EP and the way that it's been constructed will kind of change the way that you guys do write as a collective moving forward from now?
Well, yes and no. Like, I think the way we write as a group when we write songs works fine. But what I do like is that this really forced everyone out of their comfort zone. And what I hope that means is, moving forward when we write stuff, we're continually writing out of our comfort zone, and it forces us to be a little bit more out of the boundaries, so to speak. And I mean, we've been moving towards that anyway over the last little while. The way we look at it now is like, an Orpheus song is just a song that we all agree on together that we like. It used to be a lot more like, we write mellow death, and we had this like no clean vocals rule for so long. And then when we did Partum Vita Mortem, and I sort of like mucked around with some clean vocal ideas on Karma Favors the Week. It was like the first song. I sent it to the guys in demo form, and they were all just like, yes, yes, do that. And so, like, I think once we broke past that silly sort of, unnecessary boxing ourselves in, I think we've had more fun writing.
You're gatekeeping yourselves.
Yeah, exactly. And I think from the tours that we've done since those albums, it has been pretty obvious to us that they've been received just as well as we've enjoyed writing them. So, we're getting more comfortable with being less a rigid style. Like we definitely still sit in the mellow death pocket because we're always going to be a band that has that melodic death metal basis of sound, but it's a lot more, like some of the new stuff have proggy elements to them. Some of them are a bit thrashier, some of them are poppy. Like we just write what we want to write now. And I wish we'd started doing that a while back. Having said that, I never want to get rid of the songs that we already have. So it's like, I'm just glad that we're at that point now because I think we're more comfortable writing songs together than we ever have been because we don't feel like it has to be this way. It's just more, does this work? Do we like this or do we not like it? And if we don't like it, then we need to change it. And that's all there is to it.
I think at the risk of sounding cheesy, there is that element of everything happens for a reason that comes into play there. And what I mean by that is perhaps if you had done it earlier, maybe it wouldn't have worked. You've had different members in the past, and you even said earlier about how you and Kez sat on the idea of this EP for a while, and all of a sudden the perfect time to do it sort of arose for you organically. It's like sometimes you just gotta trust the process and things evolve naturally, and clearly what you're doing is working because what has it been, 15 years?
Yeah. So when you say it in words, it's
again, we old.
It's funny though because like this far into the band, I actually feel more energized and motivated than any other point being in the band. So like during lockdown and stuff, there was definitely those moments when we had that chat of like, what if we're done? Like what if this, and we very quickly realized that it was like, that's definitely not the case.
Thank God.
And then once we got back on stage and stuff, look, it's, I don't think we should have forced ourselves to do either, but it was pretty obvious what we wanted to do as a band. So if the last little while's been anything to go by and, the tour with Balacor last year, like we're pretty confident that we're at a point where we're actually more well-formed than we've ever been. I think our stage show is so much better than it's ever been. Our overall like interaction on stage and like how connected we are as a unit is so much more obvious, I think. And that was like a big thing that we got a lot of feedback from like the last year of shows was just people being like, oh my God, the chemistry that you guys have is like insane. Like it's so palpable. And it's like, I'm glad because we feel it on stage. And I hope that it's, I hope it's how people perceive it. So, moving forward, it's definitely an exciting time for us, even though I am still feeling very dinosaur-esque.
You got tons of years left in you, Mr. Dinosaur. I know you mentioned it a little bit ago, but I do want to talk about how powerful Kez's song is as well. So, Dissimilate, Destruct. And I guess you're okay speaking on their behalf about this one, but
as best I can.
Yeah, of course. Well, I guess I want to know, how did it feel as their bandmate to see that outpouring of support and just that song had such a great reception. It's such a powerful song. It's such a brave song. And then, you guys, I guess, standing behind Kez in such a vulnerable moment. Like, how did that feel to put out a song like that?
Yeah, I mean, when Kez spoke to us about what they wanted from their song, it was like, for us, it was a no-brainer. Like, I mean, it's like when people have asked us, like, oh, what was it like for you guys having Kez transition and this and that? We were just like, pretty sure we all knew it was going to happen before Kez did, which I think seems to be a pattern that I've been told, at least from other friends I know who, when you're close enough friends with someone, I think a lot of people tend to already be like, well, we've already worked this out and you've got to work it out. So it was really like, for us, it was a nothing thing. And I mean that in like the most positive way, like for us, it was just like, awesome. There was that thought process, at least for me, where it was like, I wonder how people are going to react. But I also know that like our fan base is fairly diverse and supportive. Like I remember like earlier on, there was always that thing of like, oh, you know, you want to get the most fans in the world and you want to play to as many people as you can and all that. And then after a while, I realized like that doesn't matter. It's the fact that we have such a supportive fan base. Like the people who do listen to Orpheus will always go out of their way to interact, to come to shows, to buy merch and all the things. And it's because they do care about both the music and us. So when Kez's song came out, it was just nice to see that reflected and that we weren't wrong about that. Like it was, I don't think we've, I mean, if there's any negative thoughts out there, we haven't seen it. And you know, and even if there is, I'm glad people have kept it to themselves because it's just unnecessary. So it's been nice. Like it's been really good. And it's nice, especially for Kez, you know, to see that they've just turned around and kind of looked at all that and gone, oh, awesome. You know, like this is, you know, this is just a thing now. So it's good. And I hope that other people who might be in a similar situation can take in, because like the song itself is pretty heavy. There's content in there that aren't just from the perspective of Kez's transition. It's a lot of stuff that Kez has had going on in their life for quite a while. And so like the content itself is quite full on. So I hope that people who maybe are used to listening to songs that have, you know, it's always just that straight up positive, like we can do it. Like I'm not that kind of person. So I really appreciated that Kez's lyrics were quite vulnerable, I guess. Like they were quite honest. And I enjoyed reading the lyrics because it made me slightly uncomfortable in a really like good way. It made me actually feel a little bit confronted. And it's like, I hope people feel that way because life is not flowers and rainbows all the time. And those other people who might think it is, or, you know, maybe listen to other music and it gets put across that it is, hopefully if they hear this song, they can exhale a bit of relief and go, oh, I understand this. Even if you're not trans, you know, if you're going through something or you've been through some stuff in your life and you're having a hard time, I hope that the song is a little bit of a gateway to just going, oh, other people are also feeling this, or other people have that journey in their own life in their own way. And it's okay, you know, like we've all got to deal with something hard or, you know, something really gut wrenching or traumatic. Most people do in different ways. And I'm just glad that Kez got that out in their way and other people get to hopefully connect with that in their own way. I know I did, which is great. Like, cause I can't relate to Kez's journey, but I can definitely relate to some of the lyrics and be like, oh, yeah. So it was good. It was really good to get that song out.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess it really dredges up any any little kernel of empathy that you might have for someone that is going through that journey too, because I'm the same. I can't relate to that, but I know I definitely listened to the song and watched the clip and I was just like, oh, it's heavy, and it just like I feel the feelings, you know. And I want to say I do really love the music video too. It's very simple, but like Kez's performance is just full of conviction, and yeah, it was very goosebumpy.
Yeah, I have to give extra props to Kez because Kez produced the video clip and edited it. Radley and his crew, who did Within These Walls and some other stuff for us as well, did an incredible job, like doing all the filming and whatnot. But Kez had a creative vision for this one and just nailed it. So hopefully we'll hold Kez to that standard when they have other ideas in future, which would be great. But no, they absolutely killed it.
You've set the bar now.
Well, yeah, that's what I said. I'm just like, wow, now you have no excuse. But no, they did a great job. Like, it was fun to perform in Kez's clip almost as like a backing band, you know? Like, it was...
Yes.
I'm always so used to being the front man in Orpheus. Even with video clips, it's always like, you do this, you be up front. And it was so much fun to be part of Kez's clip just as like a peripheral member. It was really cool.
While we're speaking on video clips, the newest song that's been released is The Prophecy. What is going on in that video?
Lots, I guess.
It's chaos.
We've always wanted to do like a party clip.
Yep.
And just we have never had the right song for it. And a lot of The Prophecy is about just like community fighting together for something. It's a very inclusive sort of style of song that Matt wrote. And when we were discussing clips, Matt was like, I think this is the party one. I think this is the one where we can just have friends, fans, and people together and just have a good time, because that's what this song's meant to be. And it came out really cool. Like, filming it was a freaking day and a half of like it was just a long day. I think we got to Leon's family's farm, which is where that was filmed, at like 1 p.m. or something, and then like finished up at like 4 a.m. or something like that. It was freaking ridiculous. But it was really fun. We got to do stupid stuff that, like Matt's playing on a barbecue, the drum kit's on the back of a trailer moving around and having barbecues and doing, bow and arrow shooting and cricket and shoeies and whatever else was going on. Like, it was just fun. We were obviously quite hammered by the end of it, which was great. But I think like the video, you can kind of just tell how fun it was. Like I've had a few people who couldn't make it to the clip, and just other friends who live interstate who were just like, oh man, I would have loved to have been there for that. It looked so fun. And I'm like, it was heaps of fun.
Yeah. Did you storyboard it, or was it just like, let's just fucking make shit up as we go?
We had to storyboard enough of it that we had enough content to cut between that was like usable content. So it was mostly like, here's like 8 scenarios, but let everyone go and do their thing. As long as we had those 8 scenarios sequentially locked in, so we could make it work across going from the day shoots to the night shoots. But otherwise, there was no real like, you have to do this, you have to do this. It was just like, okay, go play beer pong and get hammered. Go play cricket, and like, it was just really, we had so much footage, and like I feel so terrible for Radley, who edited and did all that. It was just like, there was just so much stuff, and we had to back and forth a little bit for the video clip edits, just because it's definitely a very subjective video clip, like it's obviously very, this felt right. There's no objective like way for the video clip to work perfectly. So when we were first trying to work it out, it was getting the balance of the band shots and the silly, ridiculous parts. And then once we got that right, it was like, oh, okay, now there's a flow to it and all that. But it was so dumb. It was the best fun. We'd definitely be keen to do something like that again in future.
I love how it starts off with the bonfire and like obviously metal and fire, and you're just like, oh yeah, cool, this is gonna, and then next minute it's you guys just waltzing on in like Hawaiian shirts. Like, hang on, that took a twist.
Yeah, that's pretty standard for us.
Can you explain the fabulous artwork, please?
Absolutely. That is by Tristan Tate Illustrations, who's done a whole bunch of stuff for us, probably for the last 10 plus years though. He did the Wear Your Sins album cover, and he does all of our crazy cartoon sort of style shirts and stuff. And when we were thinking of this idea, like, we knew immediately what we wanted. We wanted to have that like stained glass mosaic kind of feeling. And I just kind of demoed up a couple of ideas on Photoshop, and we all just kind of were like, Tristan has to do this. And in typical Tristan fashion, we gave him the idea and he just knocked it out of the park. I remember when he came back to us and was like, hey, if each of you can tell me 2 items that you care about or are part of your character, that'd be great. And we're like, oh, okay. And so if you look at the artwork, each of us is holding like 2 things. And it was just hilarious because like he just nailed everything for that. As soon as we got the first draft back, we were just like, you're pretty much done. Like, this is perfect.
So I'm going to admit that I looked at it multiple times. Like, it popped up on my newsfeed as you guys were promoting it and whatnot on Facebook. And it wasn't until like quite a few looks later that I went, hang on a minute. There's a pineapple in there. There's a flamingo. Like, this is all. Hang on a minute. I just thought it was this beautiful stained glass, mosaic type thing. And then and then I laughed and I laughed.
Oh, it's so good. Like, I mean, and this is why I guess, again, going back to like talking about how we specifically wanted it to be on vinyl, and why we were lucky enough to team up with Anti-Vinyl Vinyl Club, is because we want this to be something someone picks up. Like, even people who don't have a vinyl player, we've made the point of being like, okay, you still get a digital version of it with the vinyl if you pre-order it, but you also get, the artwork in this proper fashion with like the vinyl press that's got the rainbow colors of all of our favorite colors on it and all that sort of thing. And like, we really wanted to make as much as an art piece as it is the music, because we're I feel like kind of losing that a little bit in the modern era of how people consume music, and there's a reason vinyl sales are going up, is because I think a lot of the time people probably aren't even listening to their vinyls that often, but it's having the full artwork in front of them and the whole package, and having the vinyl with the cool, limited splatter or whatever it is that's on it.
Yeah.
And that's how we approached it with the artwork on this one. We wanted it to be something that you don't just look at on your phone screen this big. We wanted it to be something that you can pick up and go, this is sick, you know, this would make a cool poster or whatever. So it was just a lot of fun. And I think the more you look at it, especially if you get it in full size, there's probably more things you're going to pick up on that you don't even see in the initial one. So it's pretty cool.
That sounds like good enough reason to buy the vinyl then.
Absolutely. I'm inclined to agree.
Like a Where's Wally or something, like just trying to find it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you guys have, is there one, you said there's one more song to be released?
Yeah.
Yeah. And is that going to drop?
That's coming out on the day of release for the EP. So that's April 20. That'll be out. We're holding off on the video clip for that one just because there's some pretty cool stuff going on with that one, but it's definitely a lot more involved than, not so much than we expected, but more just it is quite full on. And given that I'm getting married in a couple of weeks, we've kind of not had time to do some of the really intense stuff. So we kind of were like, let's get the EP out so that everyone can hear everything and have, you know, the vinyl in their hands and whatnot. And then this last video clip, which is going to be pretty intense. Let's give that the time it deserves. All the other ones fell together really quickly, just in terms of execution. Whereas this one, we have a very clear idea of what we want, but the execution is definitely a lot more difficult. So it's like, let's you know, we haven't half-assed anything so far. Let's not do that with this one.
So you haven't filmed the clip for it yet?
No, not all the assets that we need. So this is like a multi-part sort of bunch of things that we need, and there's some
sure
VFX, CGI kind of parts that are in it as well. So it's like we really need to make sure it's all really, really locked in with this one. Absolutely.
So are you going? Did you say you're going to hold off on releasing the clip until after?
Yeah. So the song will be out because we'll make sure the whole release is out, but the actual video clip itself is going to be a little bit more sort of special, a little bit more down the road. We just didn't want to rush anything, and that was a really big part of this release. Was, hey, let's do this slowly, let's do it properly, and not you know, just drop it all at once. And I think that's kind of important as well. Like, we still believe very much in releasing a group of music, you know, a batch of music together that's been written, you know, almost like a time capsule within a certain period of time, because that has always made sense to us to be like, here's a snapshot of the band within this group of songs. We don't want to go down that route where we're writing singles all the time, because I find, at least to me, and I guess doing music production as a job as well, I find that bands get stuck in a pattern when they're trying to write singles, because it's like, we're writing one song every 6 months and the job is to get new listeners on board and catch people really quickly. It's really hard to be creative when you're only writing one song, because it's like, well, if you're only releasing one song every 6 months, if one of them doesn't do well, it's almost as if you take it a step back, but it's like, it's not. You've just released a different style of song. So what we've done is we've got these group of songs, but we've been slow dripping the releases of them so we can give every single song a really good chance to have its own impact until the full release is out. So I think that's something we'll definitely do as things go forward, just because, again, from what I've seen, I find that seems to be the way that's working quite well for, I guess, band style releases that still want to release, you know, a group of music as opposed to individual things all the time.
I think the way you're approaching this one is really smart. You're drip feeding the singles to keep the short attention spans locked in, plus playing the game with the algorithms. But yeah, you're still coming out the end of it with a complete record rather than a bunch of standalone singles. I think that's very clever.
I think it's just hard to stick out if all you're doing is trying to release singles all the time, because like it just becomes noise when everyone's doing the same thing. And I know that everyone's trying to fight for Spotify algorithms and all that, but I just find like listener retention is the long game. It's not the short game. And maybe that's an old school way of viewing it, but I mean, Knotfest was a great example of like someone like In Flames, who's obviously a huge influence on us and one of mine and a lot of our members' favorite bands. They've been around for 30 years at this point. Yeah, like 30 years. And I kind of had that thing where I'm like, oh, I wonder what the fan base is like for them now at Knotfest compared to, you know, some years ago and whatever. And it was like, they just put on this masterclass of just, oh, we're doing our thing and you can like it or you don't have to, we don't care. But the crowd, like there was people who I knew who were there for like Spirit Box and stuff in North Lane who were like, I've never even like listened to an In Flames song. Holy shit, they were amazing. And I'm like, oh, you don't have to, you know, fall into the modern pattern of doing things. It's like, just do your thing. And I think that was like actually a really maybe slightly reassuring thing to see going to that festival, because it was just like, we get told, or at least we see a lot of things in terms of how the music industry is going. And it's like, this is how you have to do it. And it's like, no, you don't. Like, that's what, that's what the industry wants so it can make money effectively. It's not what you necessarily should do if you're trying to be creative. I almost feel like some of it's at odds, but again, that's me probably showing my age. So
No, well, I mean, we're of similar age group, so I completely agree with you. And I think, like, obviously there is a certain amount of, like, you have to play the game a little bit, but
yeah,
I think in terms of, and I was actually going to leave this question to like till the end for you, but I think it might be a good time to bring it up now. I think in terms of your definition of making it in music, I think I can already tell where your answer will swing with this, because I personally believe that if you're being genuine and creating not for the sake of making it but for the sake of creating, that to me is making it, and that will get you further than playing the game with the
yeah,
algorithms. And obviously there's examples where people are not genuine and they're getting some success, but will that last? And I'm speaking to you now as someone who's 15 years deep in this band, not just like in music but in this band. So that is a testament that what you're doing is working for you. I'm going to shut up and let you say something about this now.
no, I totally get that. And like, when I was a lot younger, my idea of success was like, I want to be playing Varkin and doing all these festivals and blah, blah, blah. As I've gotten older, I'm just like, I've achieved so much more than I ever expected to with this band. Like, we have a loyal fan base who really cares. Like, without sort of getting too much into it, like, you get some messages from people who talk about how important your music is to them. And you realize, like, oh yeah, like, no amount of festival shows or money or whatever is ever going to be anywhere close to hearing from people who've been at sort of like some pretty like make or break moments in their own lives, who've somehow stumbled across your music and feel like that's given them a lease on life that they maybe didn't have. Like, that to me is like getting to that point in both the career and the band and just my age and the rest of it. It really does, my perception of what that level of success is has changed completely. At the same time, we've worked really hard over a long while to make sure that the band's self-sustaining. For the most part, like, like from a monetary standpoint, at least, the band pays for itself. Like, we only contribute when we just want to buy ourselves gear and, things that are personally for ourselves. But the band itself is mostly a self-sustaining ship. We just need to maintain it, which is a lot of work, to be honest. But that's success to me, where I don't have to take time off work and lose money going on tour and blah, blah, blah. Like, we've sort of gone past that point. And obviously, if we go to do like some European tour or something like that, there's going to have to be some input, but there's always like what you're getting back from it and all that sort of thing. So the idea of success to me is just, I don't know, quite different to maybe what the industry wants us to think it is. I always think about, I think it was, I forget his name, which is probably fine anyway, but the CEO of Spotify, who was talking about like, oh, bands have to adjust to how times are changing and how like writing for the way platforms will work is more beneficial. And I'm like, that's pretty fucking stupid. These platforms, they're not mediums, they're platforms. They will disappear at some point. They will evolve and change, and that's fine. But the fact is, your music, whether it's on Spotify or Apple Music or on Bandcamp or whatever it is, that's never going to change. And I don't want to ever look back at the music I wrote and went, that album sounds like Spotify era. Like, I want it to just be like, it doesn't matter when you listen to it. It's its own time capsule. I don't want to write to suit some algorithm or what some douchey CEO thinks my creativity should sound like. And that's something I try to push really hard with the bands who work with me in the studio, is just like, you write for yourself so that you can get excited from your music, and inevitably someone else will be as well. Doesn't mean everyone's going to be, but if you genuinely love what you're doing, it's almost guaranteed someone out there will. But first and foremost, you have to write it because you care about it. And I think we're getting better over time at writing music that we love that happens to resonate with other people. And I think that's really important. And to me, that's as successful as I can ask for. But obviously, we're always trying to push because why not? There's no reason not to. We love what we do. So if we can get our music out to more people and play bigger shows and all that, we're obviously going to do it.
Yeah, yeah. And that comes back to what I said about having to sort of play the game a little bit. But on your terms, I think is the best way to approach it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like make the game work for you, not you work for the game.
100%. Yeah, definitely. So you guys have a launch gig happening on the 6th of May at the Evelyn in Fitzroy. What can people expect from this show?
I'm pretty excited because we're going to be trying a couple of new things at this show that I won't sort of talk too much about. But if things go well, I mean, it's going to be a pretty cool one-off show. Like this is not part of a tour or anything. You know, we're playing with some bands we haven't played with in ages, like Primitive and Nabarest. We've got Imorium coming down from Canberra and In Eden Slain, who we've never played with before. I think it's just going to be a really, really cool night. Like the quality of the bands is phenomenal. Like everyone's very competitive in like a really good way. Like every band definitely has that, like, you know, from the chats we've had so far, it's like we're all just like playing with bands we care about. So we really want to be like, we're awesome, we promise, you know, like and I feel that way. Like I love headlining when we're playing a show with bands that I feel like can easily outplay us or whatever it might be. Because then I'm like, I have to try way harder now, you know. I have to get up there and actually be like, I promise we're headlining, you know. I feel like this is one of those shows. So we've got some stuff organized that, you know, we're doing some testing tonight to see if all of this will work from a technical standpoint. But we've got some pretty cool ideas in mind specifically for this show. So I would say if you haven't seen us before, or even if you have and you kind of want to see something a bit different from us, this is definitely the show to get to. Like we're playing all of Portraits in full, plus some deep cut stuff. We might be playing a couple of songs off Resolution, which is 10-year anniversary this year of that album. So there's a lot of stuff organized for this show that I don't think we're going to be repeating at another show later down the track. So I'm very keen to get to this one.
Do you know how upset that makes me? You guys have this really, really annoying habit of playing gigs that clash with other commitments for me. And I'm going to be in Phuket at the time. So, I mean, I shouldn't complain about that. But
yeah, I was like, that's not so bad.
But I'm still, look, I'd like to make a complaint to the manager. Can you put Mel on the line, please?
Oh, look, she's obviously off on other calls at the moment, but I'll get her to call you back later on.
I was determined to work your cat into this somehow.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I wonder if anyone who's like, oh, who's their manager? Mel? It's like, that's my cat. She pulls the strings on this one, so it's fine.
That sounds like it's going to be a good time, and it's a great venue too. So
we haven't played there in ages, which sucks, but like it's easily one of my favorite venues. I still love going to the Evelyn. It's a great venue. It sounds great. The people who run it are freaking awesome. Like it's just I can't even remember a bad gig I've been to at the Evelyn, to be honest. Like it's always at least been a good gig. So I'm very keen to play there again. And like from a physical standpoint, we're all very exhibitionisty in our on-stage antics. So the Evelyn is a little bit smaller than some of the stages we've played recently, but I'm very excited by that because like I feel like we're going to have to use up every little bit of space that we have available. So that was part of the reason we chose it as well, was like how much can we cram onto this stage? So I'm excited.
I saw Vatic there not too long ago, and
oh yeah,
they had old school television sets all over that stage, and I'm like, it's a small enough stage as it is, and you've stuck these massive tellies everywhere. It was that was a spectacle as well. I wanted to just backtrack a little bit and make a comment about the fact that like you've spoken about being out of your comfort zone with the writing of the EP, and then you've spoken about it again just now in a way, saying that you're playing with bands that make you work that little bit harder. I love when I speak to musicians who are, again, quite deep in their careers, and they still feel that way. They still feel like they want to push the boundaries, push themselves out of their comfort zones, and they haven't quite got there yet, even though you're all incredible musicians.
Yeah.
You know, Orpheus has clearly cemented itself as a band. You know, like you said, you've got a loyal fan base, you've done some amazing things. Hey, there she is. can we have a talk after this interview, please, Mel? For everyone everyone listening, the cat is on the screen now. The cat is on the cat is on the screen. We need to have a talk later. I guess I'm not really asking a question so much about that, is more of making a comment of the fact that I think it's awesome to see people doing what you're doing in that regard, you know.
Well, I think the second it stops feeling that way, I don't think I would do it. Like, I think that would be a cutoff point for me where I'd be like, I don't think I should be doing this anymore, because if I'm not hungry for it, then I'm just resting on whatever laurels it is we might have, and then it's pointless. Like, I'm pretty clearly a very driven person, and I thrive off that discomfort and lack of perfection, so to speak. Like, I'm always trying to be better. I'm always trying to like get that next thing. And so it's like, I don't know, it's like that hunger that we have as a band 15 years in is possibly higher than it was when we even first started.
Yeah, which is so cool.
Oh, it is. And like, it was, like I said, during lockdowns, it was terrifying because it was like, I don't know what we want, but to be here at this point now, and whether we're headlining or like supporting or something, like the other fun thing is when we support a band who we know is like, so much far above us in their career and everything. My goal is always just like, how can I make them look slightly bad? Like, like that's it. You have to have that. Otherwise,
yes.
I always think about that thing where people spoke about Metallica on the Master of Puppets tour when they supported Ozzy Osbourne. And apparently like every night they just blew Ozzy out of the water. And it's like, I want that. Like I'm not to say that it's always achievable, but I want to feel that that's what my goal is. I want to make sure that when I go out there, that's the aim. A perfect example for me was like Parkway and Slipknot.
Yes,
I love Slipknot. I've seen them almost every time they've come out in the last 10 years or longer, whatever it is. They're not one of my favorite bands at all. They just put on an incredibly good show and they're a great band, at least for me. But having watched Parkway, for example, at Knotfest, to me, watching Slipknot after that was almost like the gear went down a little bit. Slipknot put on an incredible show. They always do. But Parkway were just like, they put on the headliner show.
Yeah, they did. Definitely.
And to me, that was just so awesome to see, especially as an Australian, right? Like, just to watch our boys, so to speak, put on this show that was like, hey, this band who's literally one of the biggest metal bands in the world and have been for freaking, 15 plus years, 20 years or whatever. We're just going to do our thing and, like effectively just show them up almost. It was just, the caliber was so amazing. And I think Parkway is a great example of one of those bands who's constantly hungry.
Yeah.
And they're always talking about it. Like, all the money goes back into the band. It's always to make the show bigger and better. And you can feel it when they're on stage. Like, it's very palpable how much they love what they're doing. And especially like Winston, the dude is just like, he's the biggest cuddly teddy bear of a person when he's like interacting with the crowd, despite being an absolute monster of a frontman and vocalist. So I look up to bands like that when it comes to that like hunger and drive. Like, they've just dialed it in as like, that's the career. Like, the career move is be hungry.
Yes.
And it's just, it's so inspiring.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think as well, like comparing the two bands, there's an element with Slipknot now where it's very polished and predictable. Their stage show is very like they've done it that, and I'm not saying that in a bad way, because
no.
I quite enjoyed the fact that I knew what was coming, because it was just it got me hyped up and I was like, oh, I know what to expect a little bit. But yeah, it definitely, I thought Knotfest in general, the two bands that stood out for me the most were Parkway and Trivium, because you could see it in their performance, you could see it on their faces that they were just loving it. They were just so into it.
Them and Amon Amarth as well, for me.
I was in the museum for Amon Amarth, so I didn't see them at all.
Oh, dude. They, like, so moment of nostalgia. 15 years ago, they were the first band we ever opened up for as an international.
Yes.
And then we toured with them a few years later in Australia, which was our first Australian tour. They were like Twilight of the Thunder God era, where we were just like, they were like peak Amon Amarth. Like, that we were like, there's no way this band gets any better from here. Like, they were like firing on all cylinders. Seeing them at Knotfest, like, I kind of feel bad that you missed them, because like the chemistry, the showmanship, like, it was if you were watching them and you'd never seen them, there's no way that you couldn't have been sucked into the energy. Like it was insane.
Yeah.
And like that, again, for bands that have been around that long, to just have that. And I think maybe the pandemic and everything that happened maybe reignited some fires for a lot of these bands. Like some of them who are a bit like
Mm.
In Flames is probably a great example, who not like had any downward trajectory, but like seemed to have been getting a bit too comfortable, maybe. And
Yep.
hearing Anders talk about coming back out on stage, like he's very honest about like, I thought we'd never be out here again. I thought maybe we were done. And it's just really nice to hear the honesty, and then to hear the music that's come out of that period is probably some of the best stuff they've written in a long time. And you could see it on stage. Like it was like, you could tell they wanted to like prove that they were still there. And I think that's the best part of it. You know, maybe sometimes people get a bit comfortable, or maybe we just end up in that cycle, like in anything in life. But it was so good to go to a festival. And I think like Good Things had a lot more of maybe the younger bands, and was a bit more like not trendy in a bad way, but it was bands that I hadn't seen, like Ginger I hadn't seen, obviously Electric Callboy and stuff. It was a different atmosphere, but Knotfest was a mix of like newer upcoming bands who were sort of taking the reins, and then some of those older bands who were still like kind of showing the young ones how it's done. And the whole day was just like every band was doing their thing. And I think you're right with Slipknot, where it's like they are so polished, and it's not a bad thing, but it's just like they're a theater production at this point. You know, like they've just got to start adding matinees, and then it's like, you know, like but you know, they put on a show that no one else can put on. And I think that's good if you've never seen them, and good if you're a super, super big fan. Whereas someone like me who's seen them so many times now, I'm just like, I know what I'm getting. This is cool. And then you had Parkway doing the like, we're not even there yet, you know, like even what they're doing now, I still think they've got so much room to move.
Yes.
But the whole day felt like that. So it was super inspiring, that's for sure.
100%. I don't think I sat down for the entire day.
Yeah.
Like that is a testament of a great festival. Like I did not really leave the stages. The only time I did was for the museum. I didn't eat all day. I was like, no, I can't afford to waste time getting food or merch or anything.
If I eat now, I'll miss something.
Yeah, pretty much. I think I liked seeing Slipknot because I had a couple of people with me who didn't really know them and weren't had obviously never seen them before, so never really been into Slipknot and never seen them. And it was just like, that was really fun, taking them and being like, okay, I'm going to show you this spectacle. Like it is an experience.
Yeah, it's like you need to experience. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So
right.
I got to have that almost experiencing it again for the first time through them, which was fun.
Well, I had the same thing with my partner, who's only recently getting into Parkway Drive. Like she's the elitist metalhead in the relationship, which is hilarious. But like, you know, she always used to give me shit for listening to like Parkway Drive, Killswitch and all that. But then when like Aya and Reverence came out, and like they have a more 80s metal sheen to the structures of the songs, and she like, you know, she's got Parkway on her like workout playlist now and all that. And I was just like, you need to see Parkway the next time they come out. Like it's just, they're so freaking good. So when we got Knotfest tickets, I was just excited while Parkway was on to like watch her watching Parkway.
Yes.
So yeah, it was so good. I think that's like, you know, that's so much fun as well when you love a band and you just want to watch the person who's never seen them, and you're just like,
Actually, just speaking about your partner, you said earlier that you're about to get married. What on earth possessed you to try and release an EP at the same time as about to get married? That's insanity.
Oh, look, anyone who knows me knows I don't do anything in halves. So it's either everything or nothing, and I don't know how to do anything else. So that's your answer.
No downtime ever.
No. Unfortunately or fortunately.
No, that's really, really exciting. Well, I think it's about time we wrap it up. It's been really, really rad chatting to you this morning. Yeah, I hope Portraits is a massive success for you guys, and enjoy the show that I'm very, very sad that I'm not going to be able to be at.
Thanks so much, dude.
So if you could just hit me up before you book any more shows and just check check what my schedule is, please. Otherwise, I will be writing a very angry letter to Mel.
Yeah, I'll let you know. Just make sure we get the calendars right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, dude. Appreciate it.
4 out of the 5 tracks from Portraits are out now and available for streaming, or you can watch the videos on YouTube. And of course, make sure you pre-order yourself a copy of that vinyl. Your best bet is to find Orpheus Omega on Facebook and scope out the pinned post. Portraits will be officially released on April 20th. And lastly, make sure if you can, you get along to their gig at the Evelyn in Fitzroy on May 6th.